Hi, everybody. So my name is Ganesh. I look after e-commerce for Asia Pacific for Mondelez. I'll tell you a little bit more about Mondelez. Mondelez is one of the world's largest snack food companies. We are the #1 chocolate producer, the #1 biscuit maker, the #1 candy company, and the #2 chewing gum company in the world. So when I talk about e-commerce today, and I specifically want to talk to you about this, which is something we've tried in China, which is very, we feel, quite groundbreaking for us in the space of personalization. How to take an everyday brand and personalize it to the needs of the millennial shopper. So a little bit about Mondelez first. As I said, we're a global snack food company, around 30 billion in revenues. You may remember us, we used to be owned by Kraft Foods. So the history is that, for those of you that know your M&A history, Kraft Foods bought Cadbury's, and then they merged Cadbury's with the former Nabisco organization, which was a biscuits business, and in 2012 created and listed Mondelez as a separate company. You would know us more probably by the brands than the name of our company itself. Some of our brands, Oreo cookies, Ritz crackers, Cadbury's chocolates, Milka chocolates for those of you from Europe, Lou biscuits for the French in the audience, Toblerone that you would have seen in virtually any duty-free store in any airport, I'm sure, Trident gum, Hall's candy. These are some of our brands, and the thing with these brands is that no matter where you've grown up in the world, the chances are you've experienced it, right? The chances are, I know I have. I grew up in India in my early years, and then I spent most of my formative years in Australia. I've grown up with Cadbury. I've grown up with Bonvita, which is also one of our brands. These are all brands that we have touched our lives at some point in time. And that is a really important distinction for our company. When we talk about our kind of purpose, our ethos as a corporation, we see it as bringing delicious moments of joy into consumers' lives. Now, that may sound kind of cliche to you, but we take it seriously, and I take it quite seriously, and I'm quite proud of it. I'll give you just a short story. Before I joined Mondelez, I spent the better part of my career working for management consulting firms, right? Most of my career. I've got 2 young kids below the age of 10. Now, you try and tell your kids what a management consultant does, and watch for the glazed look in their eyes. In fact, you get that even with adults. But when I tell my kids that I now work for a chocolate company, you should see the look on their faces, the smile. And I think that to me says it all. That is really what we're about. We're not a company that makes life-saving drugs. We're not a company that produces staple groceries that you absolutely need in order to have your meal. We're a company that introduces small moments of joy into people's lives. Yeah? Whether you're taking a break at work, whether you're giving yourself an indulgent snack as you're watching TV after your kids have gone to bed, this is our space. In Asia, most of our products get sold in environments like this, okay? Big supermarkets and hypermarkets, we've all seen them around the world. We've seen them in developed countries around the world, like the US, UK. We've seen it in Singapore. If you've been to Australia, you would certainly see it in Australia. The thing with this environment, and it's an important thing to understand about our category, is that when a shopper walks into this environment, they walk in with a shopping list. I'm sure it would be the same for you. Either you've got the shopping list relatively clear in your mind, or you've got it written down on a piece of paper, right? And on that shopping list is probably going to be milk, bread, rice, pasta sauce, cereal. Chances are chocolate is not going to be on that list, okay? Unless, well, maybe it is. But chances are it isn't. And chances are chewing gum is certainly not on that list. And the reason for that is because these categories are more impulsive categories. That means that as a shopper, you have probably decided broadly that you may buy some biscuits. You definitely haven't thought about chewing gum. And you've got a core shopping list when you walk into a store like this. And then in the store environment, you make choices about what you're going to add to the basket in addition to your core groceries that you're there to buy, okay? The other part about Asia that's very interesting is that a lot of our sales happens in an environment like this. For those of you that have been outside of Singapore, of course, in fact, I'm sure that's most of you in the room that have actually, experience the true Asia, if you like, when you're in India or Shanghai or Jakarta. This is the kind of environment that most of our, oh, that didn't work too well. There we go. This is the kind of environment that most of our sales occurs in. Mom and pop stores, millions of them, okay? Now, the pictures that I've shown here are relatively small stores, but some of these can be quite large. Some of them can be the size of a convenience store or even a mini mart. The interesting thing about these environments is that they are no less convenient for the shopper than the supermarket. That's a really important distinction. We automatically see an environment like this and we assume surely this is less convenient. That is not true. Because if you take a typical family, let's say from my own experience in Mumbai or one of the cities in India, the chances are that there are, within your neighborhood, within walking distance, at least a half a dozen of these. The chances are that you, as a family over a multi-year period, have built a kind of a business relationship with a couple of these guys. They seem to be open all the time. They never really seem to close. You can call the guy anytime you like. You don't even have to go to his store. You don't have to experience the heat. You don't have to experience the rain. You can call the guy anytime you like. He will deliver it to your house. He knows your family so well that he will even add products to the basket saying, listen, you forgot to tell me about this, but I figured you'd need some sugar as well. And forget about cash on delivery, because he will run a tab for you and he'll present you a bill at the end of the month. So convenience is not the driver. In fact, in our research shows that these environments continue to thrive. These mom and pop stores continue to have a very strong role to play in modern day Asia. But actually, when we think about it, this is what we're really seeing, right? This is the scene that we experience, whether you're in Singapore or whether you're in Shanghai or whether in Mumbai. Millennials, yes, but also Gen Xers, whether they're on watching TV at home or whether they're sitting on a train on their smartphones. And guess what? A lot of their shopping behavior is shifted online. We've heard that over the last couple of days. The interesting thing about it is, I think, that online shopping has been around for a few years, right? I mean, we remember the time when Amazon started. It started with categories like music and books and so forth, and it's been spreading very aggressively across a whole range of categories. Until recently, our categories, food, fresh food, packaged food, had been untouched. They continue to be sold in supermarkets, continue to be sold in mom and pop stores. That is changing. We are finding now that increasingly shoppers, particularly millennials, who are now starting families of their own, buying even their groceries in this manner. Our online sales for our categories are growing at a multiple of what our offline categories are growing. And the interesting thing about this, I think, is why is this happening in food and beverage? It can't be convenience, like I just said, especially if you're in India or Jakarta, the guy I mean, it isn't a case of access to an assortment necessarily, or access to convenience or a function of time, because the stores are open all the time and they'll deliver to you. I think the answer really lies in our research in the relationship the millennials have with their smartphones. It's a smartphone addiction. I'll give you an example. We ran a consumer research in both Shanghai and Mumbai, and I'll give you an example from Mumbai, where we visited people's houses, middle-class families who are going about their day. And I visited one particular household, and the lady of the house, she happened to be a stay-at-home mum. She was in her early 30s, 2 young kids, and she placed all of her orders for food and pretty much everything else online. I asked her, why do you do that? Why would you go to the trouble of placing orders for food delivery online when there are multitudes of mom and pop stores nearby? I didn't get a convincing answer, quite honestly. I mean, there was a long answer, but I didn't really get it. But as I started to unpack how her overall day hangs together, right, the broader picture, the answer was obvious. I mean, this young lady, from the time in the morning she gets up to the time she goes to sleep, she's connected to that smartphone device continuously. She gets up in the morning, the first thing she does is check the news. Then she goes to Facebook and likes a photograph that her sister in another city has just put up. Then she responds to a WhatsApp message because she's having an argument with her mum. Then she checks in on her neighbor. She gets the kids off to school. She receives good news, she receives bad news, she's concerned about a medical issue in the family, she goes to Google and checks for it. So continuously, day in and day out, she's on that smartphone. So it's only natural that there's one last bastion of her life, which is food purchases, would also shift online. And I do believe, from the research we've seen, that that is one of the key drivers of why this is happening, because purely convenience and assortment and so forth doesn't solve for it. So as this shift happens, in Asia, for our categories, for chocolate, biscuit, candy, etc., the shift is most pronounced in China. We've all heard of the e-commerce boom in China. Our categories, our snacking categories, right, chocolate, biscuit, candy, etc., on average, depending on the market or the country you're talking about, between 3 to 5% online penetration, on average. China is over 10% online penetration. That means 10%, more than 10% of all biscuits sold in China is bought online. Okay? It's quite a dramatic statistic, and our snacking categories in China are growing at 20% year on year. High double digits, where many of the offline categories have started to slow down. So we've, when I took this role up, one of the first things I did was to try and get inside the Chinese online shopper's head, right? What is it, what's going on here? And we found that there were a few key insights that set the Chinese shopper online apart from their friends that were shopping offline. The first, perhaps obvious one, is they tended to be younger and better educated. 50% of online shoppers, particularly for our categories, were under the age of 30. Yeah, like I said, like that lady in Mumbai, they're smartphone addicts. In China, smartphone penetration, depending on the statistic you're looking at, we're putting it around 40%, which is up there, close to best in class for Asia. I mean, I think Korea is just over 50%. So very high smartphone penetration, and from what we've seen, those that own a smartphone have shown in China a high propensity to shop online. But the third and the fourth bullet point is what we found quite interesting and that we needed to really think about and respond to. Chinese consumers online are looking for new experiences, new and distinct consumer experiences. The best data point that I can give you for that is in our category in biscuits. If you take the top 10 biscuit products that are sold online, 8 out of the top 10 biscuit products are imported biscuits. That is certainly not what's happening in, Walmart or Carrefour or any other kind of shopping center that you're seeing out in Shanghai or Beijing. So that is quite a differentiating factor, the fact that consumers are looking for something, a new experience online versus offline. And the final point is they're demanding personalized interactions. If you take chocolate, chocolates are often used as gifts, right? I'm sure you yourself have probably presented chocolates as gifts to your family or to others. Of all of the gifting chocolates sold online in China, 30% of gifting chocolate is customizable by the consumer. That's staggering. So that means that if I go to Taobao on Alibaba's platform, there are numerous small, agile startups that will allow you to pick the individual pralines that you're going to put in the box, the shape of the box, whether it's a square or a heart shape, the color of the ribbon, the message on the box, and they'll even allow you to specify the time slot in which it gets delivered and where it gets delivered to. Okay. Another example is one of the most successful food online retail startups in China is a company that sells dried fruits and nuts. Dried fruits and nuts, the stuff that you can buy in any bulk environment in a supermarket. Within, I think, around 4 years, they've created a $300 million business online only. And the unique thing about their business model is that it wholly relies on the consumer experience. The mascots that talk to you about the product, the very detailed descriptions that are given, these nuts hail from the rainforests of Brazil and so on and so forth, to the consumer experience you get all the way till the product arrives in your house. So, and consumers are really driving and looking for this. So the challenge that we had was that our biggest brand franchise in China is Oreo cookies. It is a brand, it's a 100-year-old brand globally, launched in China in 1996, so it's been around for a long time. This brand has over 80% awareness in China, in a country with over 1 billion in population. That is very high levels of awareness. And it's loved by millions, absolutely loved by millennials. But here's some realities about biscuit and Oreo in general, right? The first is that, let's face it, guys, it's an everyday pantry item. I mean, it's a packet of biscuits. It's not something that, it's a low involvement purchase. It's not something that you're going to ache over and do market research across multiple online retailers to compare price and functionality. I mean, that's not the way this category works. And the other thing is that millennials grew up with this brand, right? They've always known it their whole life, but they probably never actually bought it in a supermarket or in a mom and pop store. Their mothers bought it for them. So millennials have now transitioned to online shopping behavior, have always known Oreo, see it as a kind of an everyday pantry item that they grew up with, but have never really experienced purchasing Oreo. And so therefore we had lost the opportunity online to really engage them, to bring them back into the category, to create a very strong connection between the brand and the millennial consumer, specifically in the digital format. Now, the fact that we were trying to do this online gave us an opportunity, because if we were trying to do this offline, you don't have too many levers. At the end of the day, you're talking about a supermarket shelf where product is stocked. In the online environment, the offer is broader than the physical product, right? It's not just the physical product. It's the way in which we deliver the brand message. It's the way in which we allow consumers to engage with it, to play with it, to make some configuration choices on it, and so on and so forth. So we went back to the drawing board and thought, what can we do with Oreo to drive a greater level of engagement between the brand and the consumer? And essentially, the concept we came up with, which we trialed, and we trialed it over a 3-day period, and we plan to do many more of these, was this idea of a customizable box. Okay, so it looks like this, right? And it's very simple, actually. What we did was we picked 3 very on-trend artists in China who are key opinion leaders on social media, engaging with consumers every day, with millennials, strong connection and so forth. And we engaged them to create some artwork for us. And then we found a partner, an online retailing partner, which was already a very important partner of ours, which is Alibaba and the Tmall platform. And we went to Alibaba and said, we want to run a campaign specifically around Oreo, focused on a very short amount of time, let's say a 3-day period, that leverages this artwork that these very famous popular artists have created. And we want to allow consumers the opportunity to configure their own Oreo gift box. And the concept would be simple. They'd come online, they would select the artwork, make some choices on coloring, personalize the message, pick the icon, and order it. So Alibaba had to build an extension to their Tmall platform in order to be able to allow this to happen. Because they saw the opportunity in being able to not only do this for Oreo, but extend it to other FMCG brands. The app that they actually created, which was a bolt-on to Tmall, looked something like this on a smartphone. So very simple, very, very simple. What it would do is allow you to go in. The first thing you would do when you click on a banner is it would allow you to select the artwork. You would make some choices on color at the bottom. You would choose the logo. You would write the message, and you would order it. So literally 5 steps. What we did in the lead up to this 3-day festival was, I think, a big part of why it was so successful for us. We invested very heavily in building a lot of market buzz around this campaign with the help of Alibaba. So on the during the 3-day festival, when you went into the app, the first thing you would see is this. There was a kind of a page takeover, so you'd be faced with something like this. It's the first thing you would see, and it would last for 5 seconds. Then, all through your shopping experience on Tmall, you would be reminded at the top that there's a 3-day campaign happening around the configuration of this product. It would stay visible all through the journey, and then at any point in time, if you clicked on it, it would take you directly to the configuration platform itself. In the lead up to the 3-day period, the buzz that was created was sensational. In Weibo, which is the Twitter equivalent of China, this was messaged about tens of thousands of times and reposted over 40 million times. And the other thing that we did was the artists that we selected who have a deep connection with the millennials also posted this on their social media and really engaged consumers and invited them to try this out. So I think the thing here is it wasn't the product itself, it was the way in which it was activated in the market. And we knew that millennials had lost touch with this brand. We knew that millennials knew the brand, but there was nothing unique or interesting about it that drew them to the brand. And we knew that we needed to, in order to re-engage the millennial, take the brand out of what would have been part of a normal grocery basket to a one-off purchase, a single item purchase. That means it becomes a destination, a reason for going to Tmall in the first place. The results were really terrific. The 3-day campaign, I mean, we set pretty aggressive targets for ourselves. We lifted our conversion rates by 3 times versus average. We exceeded our traffic expectations, our basket size expectations. We sold over 40,000 packs in the 3 days. And more importantly, we had quite a substantial impact on the biscuit category and the Oreo brand overall during that period, which was really a key outcome that we were looking for. And the consumer feedback was sensational as well, quite frankly. I mean, you just look at some of these comments, I love the fact that I can design my own box. The beautiful pack is worth to wait. Couldn't be better, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there were literally thousands of these kind of positive comments that were generated during that period. And these comments, what they allowed us to do was also to create a fan base that we could retarget over time. So essentially, we felt that the campaign was so successful, we're going to run similar ones. We've built a personalization agenda for the next 12 to 18 months. That's anchored both in biscuit and in chocolate. And we've got a series of ideas that we're going to take to the market that really recreates the connection between the millennial and the brand. So the takeaways that I would share for me and for our company is that when it comes to everyday brands, whenever we think about millennials and whenever we talk about e-commerce and digital and so forth, there's a tendency to think about personalization in a very complex way. I think everyday brands that everyone, scale brands that everybody knows and loves, can also play a very meaningful role in personalization. It can really recreate the engagement between the consumer and the brand. It not only builds the equity of the brand, it actually drives the category and drives the sales for your brand. But what we found in our category was that in order to be able to do this well, the deep partnerships with online retailers, in this case Alibaba, were key to making that happen. I don't think had we done this as a Oreo.com site that we would have driven the kind of volume of traffic that we ended up managing to drive. And then the results itself, as you know, were staggering. So thank you very much. That was really what I wanted to share with you today. I'm open to questions. And by the way, we have some samples of this pack in a bag which you're welcome to grab a couple of. And any questions are welcome. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yes. The question was how do we scale something like this, because the packaging was created and so on and so forth. So the scaling of sales obviously was a direct function of traffic we were able to drive. So you saw that, right? The way the marketing was driven. But I think the core of your question is how do we do this kind of thing in a exactly? Yeah. The biggest challenge is to do this cost effectively, guys. I mean, the average packet of Oreo costs around 7 to 10 renminbi in China. Okay, how to deliver personalization in a way that was compelling and engaging, but also cost effective. I mean, the extreme end of personalization for us would have been to actually have people submit a photograph and emboss a cookie you know, with somebody's face on it, for example, just as an extreme. And that stuff is expensive. So before you know it, you've got a $50 cookie, right? So we needed to make trade-offs, and we needed to be able to do this at scale. So we kept the concept very simple. We focused on the outer packaging of the product. So when you actually open the product, you'll see that inside, it's actually our core Oreo range that you would have bought in a store anyway. The main focus was the secondary packaging. So it didn't actually change anything for us in the plant. We didn't have to actually fundamentally create a new SKU, right? And therefore, it was very cost effective. The printing itself many of you, I'm sure, would be aware, it's a technology called digital printing, right? So the key was secondary packaging managed by our kind of a co-packer, somebody that was outside of our organization, but a distributor for us nevertheless, in a very practical way. And the emphasis was all on the engagement and the fun around the experience. And that's what drove the scale for us.